And we're live. Hey, folks, welcome back to Soaring Profits. Obviously, as you see, we have a special guest with us tonight. We have Justin. We've got a number of crazy things that are going on in the world today. Obviously, my tech stuff is still going.
That's what the thing's going.
As we go, and I can't figure out how to turn it off. So you're stuck with me getting.
If you had a tech guy that could come over and like figure it out for you, maybe you'd stop having dings during a podcast.
If only I knew what.
My computer never dings.
It's true. It's true. I guess you're just not loved enough and people aren't reaching out to you.
No. I just know how to turn it off.
Bit of both.
They love me.
Well, folks, again, we've got Justin here tonight. Justin, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your story. We were talking a little bit kind of backstage here, if you will, about some of the really cool experiences that you've had, the places that you've traveled, some of the things that you're working on currently in your professional and personal life. And why don't you lead in, Justin?
I'm 34 years old. I'd say I left the 9 to 5 probably behind me. It's been 6 years ago now, since the passing of my mother, which has just kind of given me a bit of a new take on life. And, more recently, after traveling around the world and meeting my wife in Barcelona, and she's from Brazil, and being back and forth and getting a COVID marriage and, sustaining myself through rental properties and traveling the world. Now I've come to a point where I'm basically selling everything and pursuing my goal of opening up a surf hostel.
I love it.
Yeah, or at least like a hostel, restaurant, something and where there's surfing essentially around the world, somewhere where I can wake up, and if I want to go out there and hit the waves, like I'm
amazing.
I can do that. I can walk a few minutes.
That literally is, and kind of what you were saying is that digital nomad lifestyle, right? And something that the technology that we're on here tonight, technology like Zoom, some of the the meeting aspects that COVID has kind of brought along, all the crazy stuff that COVID brought. It also brought the opportunities for someone like yourself. I'm a year older than you are, and being able to utilize that and continue to develop your career. And obviously you got some fantastic goals that you're chasing down here. That's really awesome. So with your surf shop that you're looking to do you have like a spot that you're really kind of focusing on, or
not really? is the short answer. I'm actually going in a couple weeks. Me and my wife are flying into Brazil, and we're going to visit an area called Ubatuba, which is actually where some of the world's surf competitions are held.
Wow.
And they have 110 beaches in the area, which are most of them are good for surfing. I think there's 2 or 3 that just don't meet the cusp of where the waves are coming in. And so it's a big space. I'm only going to be out there 2 weeks. I'm hoping that I can I've never even been there before, actually. So this is, I've been to Brazil many times. I've never been to this area of Ubatuba.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. And I guess I'll have a lot more to say about the place when I'm back.
When you know what it says, yeah.
When I'm back, yeah.
It sounds like we got a Justin 2.0 interview coming up here in a couple of weeks when he gets back here.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
You can flesh out the whole idea of it. Yeah. So I think it's great that so I talk a lot about driving towards goals and living your dream and finding out what that is and breaking it down. And that's what you're doing, right? You're taking your main goal is the surf shop. And now you're just looking at all the small goals. First, you have to find the space. And so now you're looking for a space, and you're doing it absolutely right. And I think it's beautiful. What you're doing is terrifying to most people. To me, I'm an old man. I could have sired both of you. But so for me, it's always been 9 to 5. I talk about that all the time, that I was raised, you have a job, you work it, you go to work, you come home. There's not even a thought of quitting both jobs and then selling everything and going to another country. Oh my God, that's just terrifying. I just think it's unbelievable that you did that. But do you know what gave you the drive? Was it because you traveled the world, or was it you were just not fulfilled? Like, what was the ground reason that you think that you decided, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm out?
It's been 6 years, I would say 6 years ago, with the passing of my mother and, the realization of like, you're kind of your own mortality, really. Um, and, she passed away from alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver. She drank a lot. And, I've looked into all kinds of things like, why was she drinking so much?
Right.
And one of the things I've come to the conclusion of is just that, some people just don't fit in the 9 to 5.
Right.
And when you're stuck somewhere where you don't feel like you fit, it's really hard to make like progress. And when you're not making progress, you feel like shit about yourself. And excuse my language, sorry, you too.
No, you can swear on here.
Okay. So, yeah, that was a big hit. Another thing, my boss, I was working as an electrician. I'll never forget what my boss said one day. One of the younger apprentices, he got married, and then him and his wife just bought their first house. And everybody was so excited for them. And my boss is like, "Oh man, I love it. I love it when one of my employees buys a house." Like, why? He's like, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
right.
He's stuck. He's like, I've got him for life. And, that has burned an image in my brain. And, I was working 12-hour nights, installing lights in Costco. And the salesman that sold the job, that picks up the phone in the office from 9 to 5 every day, that sold the job, made more than I did on the job.
Right.
I was the one showing up at 11 o'clock at night, working 12 hours.
Yeah.
For a 5-year apprenticeship, just to make still not as much as the salesman that sold the job. These things just they made me frustrated. And and I was just, screw this. Like, I walked into work one day, and there's a lot of background things that really had happened. The passing of my mother was really traumatic. They don't really tell you what somebody goes through when you're passing away from cirrhosis of the liver.
Right.
It's probably the most awful things I've ever had to witness in my life. And there was some PTSD from that, like just burning in my head. And like, I needed a break. I needed to get away. I needed to stop what I was doing. And so I told my boss, "Hey man, I'm going to leave. And I don't know when I'm going to come back." He said, "All right." So the next day I flew out to Thailand, what I thought would be for 2 weeks, and ended up being there for 4 months, working in hostels, just to extend my stay, working for stay. And I was hooked. I got the travel bug and I was hooked. And one of the things me and my friend went out and did out there was, we were in Koh Tao, and we went and got our scuba diving licenses. And I'll never forget the guy working there. He's my age. And, same thing. He quit his 9 to 5 earlier than I did. He was only 22, I think, at the time, but he quit his job, moved out to Thailand, and just went and got a scuba license, and was still on the same island. It was like, oh, okay, I'll go for advanced. Yeah. A couple months later, he's an instructor. Now he's teaching scuba diving in Koh Tao, Thailand. And that's something that my parents never brought me up, knowing like, you could be a scuba instructor in Thailand, or a surf instructor in Sri Lanka, or a yoga instructor in India, or you grow up thinking, I can be a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher, or I can go into the trades and I can be an electrician, a plumber, and yeah, that was an experience. Once I saw that, I was just kind of like,
well, first and foremost, I got to give you a ton of credit for the fact that as a young man, to be able to pick up, have the self-awareness to be able to check yourself and go, you know what, this isn't working. I don't want to do this anymore. And especially, so Justin, obviously you've just met me, but for the our group, the profiteers, we call them.
Yeah.
Like the mouseketeers, we got a whole kind of thing going, right? So the group that kind of follows us here, I lost my father back in November, and I can tell you firsthand that's been the worst experience, bar none, of my life. And today's actually his birthday, so we had a kind of a graveside thing for him this afternoon, and I vitriolly understand what that would mean in transitioning to something if you have that opportunity available to you, and grabbing that. And you got big balls, man. I love that you went out and you grabbed it wholeheartedly and you ran with it. And it just says a lot about who you are as a person and your ability to try to make those dreams come true.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Like, so when I was 27, my mom had MS and she died over the course of a short period of time, but she suffered for a long time. So I get that whole watching your mother suffer and then die, and it's awful. And rather than doing what you did, which is probably what I should have done, I put my head down, kind of forgot that she existed and didn't deal with it till like recently, and just threw myself into the 9-to-5. I had a young family to raise and I just did it. But so I get what you're saying. Like it's life changing, like mentally breaking. And like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But
me as well. Yeah.
For me, like when terrible, terrible things happen and joyous outcomes come out of it, it's just amazing. Like you are in such a good place, in such a good spot. You like traveled the world, you experienced all these people, and you did all these things. That's so amazing from a tragedy, right? That I just think that's what a great experience. Like you could have, there were so many people out there that would have just, like I see them all the time, would have just started injecting themselves with drugs so they didn't feel pain, like, but instead you made a choice to do something. That's amazing, man. The question I have now is, so while you were traveling, you said you were working in hostels. So I have no experience in hostels. Like I am not a world traveler. I've been to 2 resorts. So I know that. I'm hoping Denise very soon will get me into something cool. But so I don't really know the hostel experience other than it's like a group of people, like you can show up and it's a room or something. So what do you mean by working there? Like, were you an electrician or were you like?
No. Front desk, checking people in, cleaning rooms.
Right.
They said if you clean rooms for 6 hours a day, you get the next 2 days stay free, was the deal at one place. One was getting people to come and join a beer pong tournament, like
nice.
Pouring alcohol in people's mouths and come on, pay some beer pong, it was. The jobs were extensive. Like sometimes it was running the shuttle because they had a shuttle that would drive people like in town or to a beach or to the airport or that type of thing. And it wasn't even something I went there really looking for. Went there for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, well, I'm not going home. And
why would you?
Talked to one of the people at the hostels, like, can I stay? And I think hostels was like my first time in a hostel too. So like, for example, when I flew into Bangkok, I stayed in a hotel because, Expedia gave me the 60% off for whatever after booking the flight. So I did it. And then even then I went to a travel agent within Thailand, and biggest mistake of my life. I was like, plan me an itinerary, and it was okay. It was great. But we were staying in we were very closed off from the people, the other people that had showed up there as solo with the same ambitions as you. And you, like it wasn't until we I think we were about a week into our itinerary, and the guy, we went to the full moon party in Copenhagen. So, and I remember distinctly being on the beach the next day after the full moon party, still awake from the full moon party, going like, don't I have a flight in 20 minutes? And you see the planes taking off, and you're like, oh, there it is. And then call the itinerary guy, and we're like, yeah, scratch the rest of it. Scratch it. And then we just there was places I hadn't even heard of, like going to Pai in northern Thailand. I would have never even heard of that place unless I was in a hostel and talking to other travelers and them being like, oh, you got to go to you got to go to Chiang Mai, and then you got to go to Pai. And I'm like, what places are those? And then I ended up going, and it turned out to be like one of the most fantastic experiences of my life. And I owe it all to those people that I met in those situations, you know, like in hostels. And they're just the friendships, you know, like you're sitting there, and some people are going to go to Cambodia, some people are going to Vietnam, and you find those like-minded people, you know, like I was there with my friend Chris, and he wanted to go one place, and I wanted to go to Cambodia because I wanted to see Angkor Wat. And I was like, you know what, man, like I'll go to Angkor Wat. You do your own thing.
Yeah.
You know? And that was one of those things too, you know, because I had gone with the intention of finding myself and going myself, and including my friend Chris was a mental scapegoat.
Sure.
You know, was that scared person of me going like, oh, you can't go to Thailand by yourself.
Right.
You got to bring your best butt along. And after a month, I was like, you know, man, I really want to go to Cambodia. I'm not afraid that of making friends or making no friends. I know I will.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so, and it was one of the best things. Just going off to Thailand and Cambodia and Laos, and it set me up for definitely the last 6 years of my life. And
so how many countries have you been to, Justin, now in your travels?
Oh man, to be honest, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos.
I'm gonna get you a scratch off calendar there.
Yeah, I know. You know what? It's one of those things that I'd really like to have too.
Yeah, for sure.
After Southeast Asia, I went to Europe. And I'd always fly into Amsterdam and then go to Budapest or Prague or, Spain or just, I don't know. One time my brothers were driving me to the airport, and they're like, oh, where are you going? Where are you going? And I'm on my phone. And I'm like, I don't know yet. And that's how I met my wife.
Wow.
Barcelona. I was like, oh, cheapest tickets to Barcelona, and they got nice weather. So I guess I'm going there. And,
beauty.
I just ended up flying to Barcelona. I met her. We didn't even hit it off until the last day. And then I had flown home. And then we were messaging each other. And like 3 weeks later, I met her back in Italy. And then we were traveling there for a month. And a few years later, we're married. You know? So,
that's amazing.
It's been, and I don't know. You know, like people like that too, you don't find like, when you're looking for them. It was just you know, like I was just going for my own thing, and then here was this girl trying to interrupt my vacation, and, you know, it was just it was great. And if I didn't have that attitude that, you know, like that the world was a small place, I might not have flown back to go meet her.
Oh, I get that. I've had two girlfriends now. That one was in Halifax, one was closer in Hamilton, and I had a really hard time because you can't see them all the time. You're everything is through like either video chat or phone calls or texting.
Yep.
It's a hard way because you're in two separate complete lives.
Yeah,
and so many so many things can be misinterpreted over text and over phone and over video chat that wouldn't be if you're sitting in the same room or you went to the party together that you're talking about, you know, and it really is a hard thing to do. It's worth it sometimes, but it didn't work out for me, but it is worth it sometimes. That's amazing. That you met the person of your dreams without looking. That's just incredible. Yeah.
So your wife, did you say that she was from Brazil?
She is, yes.
So now, has that kind of sparked the interest in setting up the shop potentially in Brazil?
That's one of the main reasons why I would like to. You know, it's just like she's got her family there.
Right.
I can easily get citizenship there.
Okay. Have you looked into that process yet?
Yeah, actually, I'm working on both my Italian citizenship right now and my Brazilian citizenship at the moment.
Wow.
Is this like a World War III back, you know, plane you got playing?
Yeah, this is 100% what it is.
That's crazy.
Well, Gio got her Italian passport because she is if you can prove your ancestry, and I think like 60% of the people in Brazil are all from Italian descent.
Wow.
A lot of them. Actually, not 60%. I'm sorry, but the vast majority of them. The vast majority, sorry, would be African American for sure. But of the other immigrants, there's actually a heavy Japanese population in Brazil, which I had no idea.
Wow.
I had no idea there was a. But yeah, no, she's Italian descent, so they gave her. She was able to apply for Italian passport, and then through marriage, I guess I can become Italian.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I have to take an Italian language test here.
Really?
And apparently it's one of the more strict ones. So,
how's your Italian?
Prego. Not good.
I love it. That's awesome.
It's the only word I don't know.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Well, it's something that I've been looking at around, and again, with talking about what you're doing right now with the nomad kind of I'm going to call it the millennial even lifestyle, that the nomad capitalist type lifestyle. There's so many countries out there right now that if you have X number of dollars in your bank account, you leave an account in that nation, that you're able to do this. And again, there's a lot of people that are of the same mindset of yourself as kind of future planning. We're not really sure what the next 2 or 3 or 4 years is going to have in store for a lot of people. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that about the opportunities. So one of the things I just learned is that you can, I don't know if you can still do it, but for a while, and I don't know if you watch the world news about Sri Lanka, they're going through just the world's worst time right now. They're struggling to get gas just to power their country. And you can bring a briefcase, like if you brought a carry-on and you filled one with cash, $1 million with cash, and you gave it to one guy, okay, and you gave another one full of pot to another guy, right? And they get off the plane. The guy with the pot's getting the death penalty. Yeah.
And the guy with the cash, the guy's just going to look at it and go, "Oh, be careful, sir."
Right.
They don't even claim it. They don't even pay tax. There's a 0 tax rate on the money they're bringing into Sri Lanka. Wow. Now, the reason they did that is so that the corrupt politicians can actually start bringing their money that they were laundering in all these other countries, because we're in wartime right now. Those accounts are all being heavily monitored, so they're pulling a bunch of dirty money back into their country, essentially. That's yeah. So sometimes that's why those opportunities exist, is because the people running the country.
Yeah, they need to get that cash back. Well, it's interesting because, again, with that nomadic capitalist kind of mentality, I know that currently right now, all of the cryptocurrency assets that are being held around the world, there's a lot of these, developing nations that are doing massive incentives for these individuals with modest, even crypto holdings, tax-free sheltering for up to like 2 and 3 years. You get your residency. You can even apply for your citizenship very easily after that. They want you there. Like they are position.
Is that what are you talking about, like a pay for visa? Whereas if you hold an investment over so much, they just give you the
right. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I've ever looked at, because I'm just a white Irish guy. So like, as much as Irish sounds great, Ireland sounds great, I don't want to be there in the rainy winter. Snow, I ski. I can't ski the rain, so I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
so I have no want to go back. So I'll visit. I'll have a hell of a scotch and a whole bunch of Irish whiskey, but that's about as close as I'll ever get to probably living in Ireland. So
yeah. Well,
that's cool. So talking a little bit about, what you were doing with your investments, you were doing you had a rental property. Mm-hmm. You want to tell us a little bit about how you kind of started into that and how you were saying that you were doing like the room rental stuff, kind of house hacking?
Yeah, kind of. I bought a house with my mom before she passed. Yeah. And we worked it as a rental property essentially when I was in college. Awesome. And then it just kind of continued on since then. She passed away. Yeah. I assumed the house and continued to rent the rooms out in it. And, that and some savings and some small investments. I mean, I'm not one on, like, I don't work with like dividends and that type of thing. right? Like I invest with Wealthsimple,
Sure.
right? But that's just to for mainly amassing my capital. Yeah, like if again for the it's a scary time right now, especially because I have since sold the rental property and have had an income of zero for the last few months, and it's definitely getting to the point of scary.
Right.
You know,
I think you timed that perfectly, and this is something that we talk about a lot on this podcast is trying to time markets, trying to read into what's coming down the pipe next. And it sounds like you made the right decision right now with housing prices over the last little while on such exponential curve to get out now, take that asset, that nest egg that you've created for yourself, and then, like you're saying, is to go out there and build that dream that you want for yourself as that nomadic kind of position that you're in right now. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
You sold it when houses were really high. Now they're coming down, but so you got the big bang for your buck. Whereas if you had waited a little longer, you probably wouldn't be able to sell it and make the kind of money you're talking about.
Right.
And the opportunities they're slowly dwindling. You're talking about the pay for passport, right? Where if you make a certain investment, you can limit. They've increased the amount of money that you need to have to be in a lot of these countries, which for myself, I've had to X a couple off the list because of that. Some of them want you to have X amount of passive income too.
Right.
And that's something you got to work out before going there. It's different if you're going to have passive income, live there, or you want to move there, start a business, and maybe provide some jobs. They like that too, and that requires maybe a little less investment depending on what you're investing in.
Right.
Maybe a $20,000 taco stand is easier for somebody to afford rather than a $400,000 house.
Right.
Which is totally doable. You could, put down on a taco stand down in wherever you'd like, really. I think the world's changing in that aspect too. Like I think that I think North America had its boom. Ford Motor Company, all these things, and just the other part of the world's taken over for as far as manufacturing and these types of things. And I don't think it leaves us in a very good place. It's all about Canada's a wonderful place for some, right? I mean, I hate the cold weather. I hate it. I can't stand it. I used to snowboard and stuff. Back when you could snowboard and get a lift pass for $15, yeah, sure, send me snowboarding. But now I can't afford to buy $800 worth of equipment and then an $80 day pass to go skiing and snowboarding. These activities are become for like the privileged.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I really love surfing so much is because the day people start charging me to go in the ocean, it's the day that, I'm really going to stop and think and be like, oh, what's going on?
And that's kind of why I switched to running, because I was in CrossFit and other things. It's because like I was paying, I think it was like $300 a month to do CrossFit, and I was paying like other gym memberships and stuff. And they were all effective. They all were great. But I can do the same by running, and it cost me an expensive like $300 pair of shoes, and then I'm running, and that's it. Like I got a year of running on $300.
Yeah,
and I could do it anywhere. Like I can go to Ottawa, I could go to Sri Lanka, and I can run. But whereas all this, like you said, well, Pat just like bought at the end of the season, I think of COVID there. He bought a whole ski package for his daughter and himself and spent a whole ton of money, and then found out that he couldn't ski because you had to book times. They were stupid.
First of all, you had to book times. You had to be vaccinated. You had to wear a mask. You couldn't go in the chalet. They had every possible excuse to keep people off their hills. because the government was paying them to keep people off the hills. Right. And we've talked at great lengths around, some of the actions wherever you fall on the political spectrum in regards to, the COVID mandates and the rollouts and how it was handled across the world. Mm-hmm. It's pretty hard to say that, handing people $2,000 checks every month was a great idea for bouncing back after this. Right. Yeah. So as far as a nation, individuals, it's been good for them. However, as a nation, we're in a situation right now where, while we look at gas prices, we see inflation rising. We see all of these costs that are coming down the pipe because of this. Yeah. And CNN can keep telling you that it's not because we print money, but that's literally the process of inflation.
100%. 100%. Absolutely.
The whole concept around, having that independence, I think is such an interesting concept. And again, like James was saying, I have a young daughter who I'm a single father, and having my daughter here and the foundation, I realized that I'm kind of in the situation where James was. He kind of locked himself into the family man perspective for the next little while. And then I'm hoping to make so much goddamn money over the next couple of years that I don't have to work anymore ever again and sit on the beaches. And I'm going to come down and check you out in Brazil, man. We're going to go surfing.
Awesome.
And I have no idea how to do it. So I'm going to be the big fat guy out on the beach, just laying there, and you'll just be like, come on.
Man, I've seen some pretty big guys surf before.
I love it.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea. Like we are slowly amassing. Like Pat's ahead of the game for me, like because he's taught me everything about finance. I knew nothing about finances. Like when I said I was a 9-to-5 guy, I was a grunt. I would go to work, I would do my job, I would come home, and then I'd do nothing. I'd just eat and grow fat. But once certain things happened in my life, Pat kind of opened my eyes, and he taught me how to have a rental property, which was huge. He taught me how to use my finances. I have like a whole portfolio in stocks because of him. Like I've learned so much from that guy that now each year I'm growing money. It's better. It's something that you need to do.
100%.
Instead of just settling for that 9-to-5, now I have my hand into passive money, and passive money is amazing. Like there's so many options that I don't do anything for a lot of this stuff that I'm getting money. Like when the first of the month comes and I get a couple of checks, that's a glorious thing. And I could do that anywhere, right? And so that's a lot of the things that Pat and I are trying to grow. And that's really what this is too. We're trying to grow this podcast because we're looking at stuff. What can we do wherever we are? We could be surfing down in Brazil with you and have the live show go on. Like we could do this anywhere. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so we're just trying to look at many, many options to, Pat's leading the way. I am really being led by Pat, but looking at many options to grow businesses that will just give you that passive income. That's beautiful. Right, Pat?
Well, since we're jerking each other off, I figure that I'll maybe start running too or something. I don't know. How does this work? So I got to start running. That's
No, you got to do the domino journey.
Right. Well, okay. So you've got your domino, and what are you working on right now that you're going to be launching on?
7-day keto journey.
So a 7-day.
I'm going to teach you how to lose weight, and it's going to be the beginning of losing weight. You got to do it for months. But for 7 days, I'm going to teach you all I know about keto and give you kind of the menu plan and all that, and and teach you how to work on your mind, body, and soul like I always do. Yeah,
that's it.
Loving it. And we're just trying to change we always talk about how what you did. You picked a goal, you left everything and moved to what makes you happy. And you did that by your pocketbook, which is Pat's always talking about making money together. You were healing your mind and your soul and your body. And you did all of that the whole time that you were traveling. And it's just because you were able to not be afraid.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Definitely. You can't be afraid when it comes to some of these big decisions too. Right. And I want to make one thing kind of clear too, right? There is a few ways that people could live this lifestyle, investing your money properly with some kind of with your stock portfolios, and taking a job from a laptop and working remotely. and that type of thing. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm on the cusp. I'm between a millennial and, you know, before that, and I have a hard time sitting down and working at a laptop. I have a really, really hard time. But I'm very much a people person. I love working with people. I'm very hands-on, you know, like coming from electrician's background, right? And so my idea of moving somewhere and living this life is like I could move to Mexico and work in a hostel, you know, and have that physical interaction with people. You know, you don't have to work on a laptop is I guess what I'm trying to say, right? Like,
and I think it's about expectations too. Like, you know, when a lot of Canadians, when they think and they hear about going down and living in Mexico, they think of the resorts they visited with their families, maybe when they were younger. And they think of, you know, little drinks with palm trees in it. They think of the white sand beach villa that you stayed in with your family. And when you live there, that's not how Mexicans live.
100%.
Right. So to be able to step back from that and realize that there's a whole culture and a whole society of people that 9 to 5, they do whatever they do to put food on the table. And then they live a totally different cultural existence than what we do in kind of Western society. Right. And if you have a pivot in expectation, it feels like to me, as long as you don't think you're going to get, you know, martinis on the beach every day, you can probably do all right for yourself.
I can't agree more. I mean, the retirement dream, even of serving or having like a cocktail on the beach, is a very short-lived retirement. Really.
Yeah. Could you do it every day?
You're going to do that every day, and you're going to get bored really quick.
Yeah.
You know, we all need purpose in life, you know, and whether that's, you know, being the old lady making pies for the church social on Sundays or something, or having some responsibility, you know, and this is really, I think at the end of the day, why I'm trying to form a business like a surf hostel where I can run into my 70s. You know, I see some 70-year-old guys there surfing, and I'm like, that I want to be that guy. I want to be 70 and surfing and have purpose and have, you know, something to go back to and share experiences. You know, this is why I think I'm going in like more of like a hospitality direction is because you know, I want to share experiences, and it's just what brings me happiness, really. Like surfing is one of those things that incorporates feeling excited and exercising at the same time, and it's and for me, I'm not a gym guy, you know, like I get bored really quick. You know, like
when you were traveling and you were doing kind of the hospitality side of things, was your like English speaking language, obviously I'm guessing that's your first language?
Yeah.
Right. Do you speak any others fluently? I know we're working on Italian all of a sudden here, but
eu estou aprendendo português.
What are we?
I'm learning Portuguese.
There you go.
No, but when you were traveling, though, did you predominantly speak English?
I predominantly, you know what, to be honest with you, most of the places you go in the world, English works everywhere.
Yeah.
You go to Thailand, you're not going to have a problem saying anything to anybody in English. You know, if you're in a bar, they know English because, well, 90% of the people at their bar, the tourists like you, are speaking English. So the money making, and you notice the money making language, if it's a money making language country, they speak English.
Right.
The biggest hurdle I've had is Brazil, because
really,
they're the only country in Brazil that speak Portuguese, or the only country in the world, or in South America, that speak Portuguese. Everybody else speaks Spanish. So 90% of the tourists in Rio are from Argentina, and they speak Spanish. So
interesting.
They already have their heads full with trying to translate what dialect of Portuguese and what kind of Spanish can I work out from this guy. It's one of the first countries I've been to where I try to say something to English and they just
who's
right over their right over their head, and
he's got the wife, he doesn't have the language,
and not to mention the people on the street around you will be you're really an odd man out, and
the gringo.
Yeah, and English is really, it's one of those things that's taught in a lot more of the privileged neighborhoods too, right? Especially like a country like Brazil, they have no middle class. It's extreme poverty and extreme, you know, not poverty.
Not poverty.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. Very cool. So you were saying that you traveled, you know, quite a bit through Europe. If you were having somebody like right now, someone backpedal, you know, 5 or 6 years in your life, if somebody was wanting to do what you've done, where would you start? Like, what is your first like launching point? Where do you go? Like, you're gonna fly out of YYZ and you're gonna end up where? Where's your first spot to knock off?
In Europe or in Thailand or
kind of all over? Like, what if
you want the best trip, fulfilling.
Yeah. So one of the things I would say is timing really is the most important thing, right? Thailand has a rainy season. You know, my older brother decided to travel Thailand, I think in January 1 year, and he had a horrible time. He was walking in like waist deep water on the islands that are supposed to be this picturesque postcard.
Yeah.
Now, when I went to Thailand, I did it smart, unlike my brother. But
little family dig.
Yeah. Hopefully,
he's watching.
I went in March. So at the end of March, I was able to go to a full moon party, and then on April 14th, I was able to go to Songkran, which is their Thailand New Year, which is the biggest water gun fight in the world.
Wow.
Which is just, you know, if you want to go and have a good time, you know, these are the things you gotta like. You're going somewhere to experience their culture, you know, like it's, you know, I was in Ireland for my 30th birthday. I'm born on St. Patrick's Day.
Top of the morning to you.
Yeah, well, so on my 30th birthday, we were all in Ireland, and you know, we made a big deal of it, like made a road trip and went and bet on horses, but we were there during the rugby match where they took the Triple Crown.
No way.
Right? And like, you could be on Dublin on a St. Patrick's Day, or you could be in Dublin on St. Patrick's Day, the day where they take the Triple Crown home after a rugby game.
Yeah.
And it's two completely different experiences, right? So
you get killed.
Yeah. So to really, if somebody was, you know, I want to plan this trip and I got all the time in the world, I'd say wait till March, go to Thailand. If it was like, you know, I want to go now, there's so many things that I've wanted to experience that I haven't been able to just because of divine timing. You know, I want to go to the tomato festival in Spain where they like throw tomatoes at each other and the streets are covered in tomatoes, but I've never had the opportunity to travel in August.
Well, today I think is the running of the bulls, isn't it? The first they've had in 2 years.
Yeah, I think so, or something like that. Yeah, and again,
go James.
So COVID is more scary than running with bulls. I'm just saying that's the analogy right there. COVID was more scary than running with bulls. I would think that if you're risking your life running with bulls.
Yeah, we better cancel it because we're gonna get a cold. Yes, I know it's more than a cold.
There's more than a cold.
Those poor bulls might actually catch something.
That's it.
They're the ones I'm worried about.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because like people actually get gored by like die from the bulls and get really hurt by the bulls, right? I don't know.
The bulls are super spreaders because they just like pile through everybody.
That's it,
right?
They make everyone together.
Yeah.
Fiddle going everywhere. That's why.
Well, so for myself, like I think I've said this a couple times before. I think we were talking with Denise earlier, and I was kind of talking about some of the like myself, my personal, you know, travel, you know, wants kind of thing, right? And I've always had this weird draw, oddly enough, to Thailand and Spain. And I'm not a big, like, I don't mind Thai food. I have no other connection to Thailand whatsoever. I'm not really a big like social media influencer follower where I got to get the pictures by the mountain range and all that stuff. There's just been something very weird that's drawn me to Spain and Thailand, and I have no cultural significance to it. Like Ireland, I got to go to Ireland. It's a family thing. I got to go kiss the Blarney Stone and go see where the family was raised, right? Where we picked potatoes and then starved to death. So, but like those are things that have really drawn for me, and that's where I struggle in like trying to plan a trip, because it's like Spain, Thailand. Well, those are on the other side of the world from each other. That's more than like a 10-day run.
Yeah. Well, it could be 2 trips, and also you have your daughter to consider
Right.
too.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, the full moon party would be a little much.
Yeah.
Yeah. She turned 13 last week.
Love it. I'm just saying, you would love it.
There's a lot of things they don't tell you about those events that would
Not go
place for a kid.
So how do you have so like the water gun thing? How does that happen? Like, what is the basis around this water gun party?
It's their Thai New Year. So during the Festival of Songkran, it lasts 3 days. There's the day of, and the day before, and the day after. It's a giant parade. Everybody drives their pickups on the streets. They put kiddie pools in the back of these pickups, and people got buckets, and they're just throwing water off the truck. All the restaurants bring hoses out to the road so you can fill up your water guns. There's vendors bringing home water guns. There's the owner of my hostel. Every time we left the hostel during Songkran, he'd take a bucket of water and just dump it over your head.
I love it.
Like, you're gonna be wet in 2 seconds. Anyway.
So, like, is there like a traditional, like, tribal? Is there a religious?
I believe it's to like a New Year, start fresh, kind of like just wash all the old away. That's think is their is the motive for it, and it's nice. It's awesome. It's a really fun time. I think the tourists destroy a bit of it with the drinking and the partying, and I mean, you got to join it, but I mean, I don't know. You know what, I say that, but yet the locals fully embrace other people coming and celebrating. That just makes them like so happy that you're there, you're celebrating, and now it's getting bigger every year, and yeah, I think they really embrace it. They really like it.
So how long ago was it that you were in Thailand specifically?
I wrote it down on my notes over there.
Notes. I love this guy. That's awesome.
Yeah, you gotta have notes.
I was March of 2017. So,
okay, so have you been a couple times? Obviously, you did Vietnam. You said Cambodia.
I did Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. No time for Vietnam. I had to go back, but I have my name down on I don't know if you've seen there's a cave in Vietnam they discovered 6 years ago.
I have.
Where the jungle's underneath?
Yeah.
So I'm on a waiting list, and I'm waiting for them to call me, and then I'll be able to go to Vietnam and go see that cave.
Okay, so what is the list? So James, just kind of for those who don't know,
I have no idea.
This was like the world's biggest cave that is like unexplored completely.
They have a whole ecosystem in the cave where like a jungle is growing essentially with very little sunlight just poking through the little random holes. Wow. I think it was a couple of German guys that found it like 6 or 7 years ago. Wow. Now I put my name on a waiting list for it, but I think they released the waiting list before COVID, and then COVID happened. So yeah. Who knows where that's gone? My name's probably gone now.
Yeah. But, see, that was what I was inquiring about. Like, travel around the world. Like, everyone through the 2 years of lockdowns, everyone had the itch to travel. Then we got out, we saw prices jump, they've fallen, they've jumped, they've fallen. And what I'm wondering is that what's that doing to the travel industry? And that's, I talked with Denise a little bit after our conversation, actually. And I was saying to her is that what she's doing is she's doing a very premium product in what she's trying to do and create. And I'm saying it, like, I very much believe in talking with, all of our followers, and that I talk a lot about recession planning because we're there.
Yeah. Right? Well, we're the recession started.
Right.
Everybody's saying it's coming this fall.
No,
we're here.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that for her, if you're just doing the run-of-the-mill Cuba trips, that's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah.
But if you can create a dynamic, something exciting, I think high price tag, those people are going to have money, right? And that's where I'm wondering what a nation like Thailand, what a nation like Cambodia, what these up and coming developing nations in Southeast Asia are struggling with right now in regards to travel, right?
Huge.
Right.
The blow on travel to Thailand has been immense. I have a lot of friends down there, Thai friends as well, and businesses have closed all over.
Yeah.
Part of the ask of Thailand was actually in some areas just how busy it was with tourists.
Sure.
That's what the place had going for it was. Look at all the tourists, look at all the people, and it's certainly lost that. When you have an economy that thrives on being overcrowded, and then it goes to a couple people walking the street, that's big. That's really big, and it's hitting the people there like really hard.
We felt that in a minor way because we are a tourist town. We're very tourist, and we're also a university town. So when all the kids went and they could go to university in their own cities, in their own countries, there was no, like, our town basically became like it was just quiet. It was like an old Western town. There was very little, shops were closed. There wasn't a lot of commerce going on. And there were no tourists. Like in the summertime, we have like big concerts and festivals. Like we just had Gowan and some other people.
Sam Roberts.
I know you guys know who Gowan, but he was big. He was huge.
Gowan, what's that? Midnight Desires? Is that one of his hits? Is that Gowan?
This is a James generation thing. He told me, and I'm like, "You're too old for me, man. I got nothing."
Yeah. Do you guys mind if I put a pin in this 2 seconds? And
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Tried to get it all out before, but
So a little bit while Justin's doing that, a little bit on the next things we got coming down the pipe. So James, obviously, we're going to be doing the
7-day keto journey.
Right. So you've kind of laid out a stem to stern plan, meal planning, kind of a psychological process of what you're going to go through.
Yeah, I talk about each day. I start from day 0, grocery day, kind of a cheat day, and then I go through 7 days of keto, and I go through like just little tips and tricks and some of the things, the way it affects your body. Today I talked about how it affects your poo, because it does affect your poo. The keto flu. And the ketosis sticks and stuff like that. What you do when you're traveling and you want to stay keto, all that stuff. When you want to go ahead partying, that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So it's just kind of runs you through, gives you tips on, it gives you enough information that if you just do that 7-day journey every day for 2 months, you're going to feel better, you're going to lose weight, and you're going to do really well.
Right.
But what I've been suggesting is every day, search something up, learn, make your own kind of meal. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. I've been working on Spotify. Spotify has a few of our things up now. On Instagram, YouTube. I just got a new an Instagram personality that I met through the running room that has actually a following, and he does commercials and stuff on TikTok. So we're kind of talking back and forth. So he's going to be coming down the pike. He's a guy who lost a lot of weight. We have Killer Kate, who lost 300 pounds. And so she's going to talk about her, because she's now a personal trainer, motivation like that. We may have like a pretty Ontario famous band. I don't know how famous they are, but I'm talking to them and trying to get them to it should be August and September. So we just got a lot of exciting things coming down the pike. It's going to be fun.
No, lots of cool people. And Justin, just kind of what we were talking about there, just kind of what we've got going down the pipe. So what's next for you? Like, where do you see the next, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Where do you see, what's that going to mean for Justin?
For me, it's going to be going down to Ubatuba. I'm really looking into really acquiring a piece of property, right? I have my daughter living with me too. So it's
good for you, man.
I was watching your last podcast, and you're talking about schooling through online and really teaching your kids to be, digital nomads. Yeah. And that's something that I talk to her about and say, I'd love to start this business, I'd really love to send her to Sri Lanka to be a surf instructor when she's graduated and this type of thing. But, my goals aren't necessarily her goals, right?
How old is your daughter?
She's 16.
16. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. 16 would be a hard age because you've got that friend base and that trying to figure out what that looks like.
The boyfriend.
Oh, no.
So that's why you're moving to Brazil.
That's what's keeping her here right now.
Right.
But
you got a shotgunner like that, you could kind of polish it with the front porch.
You know what? He's a great guy.
You should have made him perfect.
Actually, that was one of the things. So the original plan was actually we were all going to go down this summer. I have friends that started a surf camp in Nicaragua. Actually, we were going to go to Nicaragua, go for a couple of weeks, and then go to Brazil.
Love it.
But then the money,
right?
So the prices went up for airfare and that.
Have you noticed that? Has it?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely it's finally. Travel industries were doing their best to try and keep it down because they were dealing with a lot for this whole thing. They still are, and now inevitably,
supply demand is caught up.
Somebody's got to pay to fuel those jets, man. And I have heard that jet fuel is a little more efficiently refined,
right,
than what you're buying from the pump. Yeah, so it keeps it a little down, but I think
it's actually funny you bring that up. There's a company that I've monitored for a long time there, and they're talking about these eco jet fuels, and they're made out of kind of an ethanol type product. And they signed a big contract with I think it's Southwest Airlines, and it was huge news because they're like, okay, well, are you going to be able to fly planes off corn? Like that's a pretty interesting process, right?
Yeah.
And that's a thing because as you see oil prices get just astronomically ridiculous, which luckily we're starting to see that pull down. And I think, kind of some of the talks that I've had over the last little while is that inflation has been our biggest fear over the last little while. But I actually think that you're going to start to see the stock market pivot away from inflation as a concern and pivot to recession as a concern. And they're very different problems. Inflation is shit's going too good. There's too much money. We gotta sop it up a bit. As where recession is, nobody's buying anything. Nobody has any money.
Yeah, there's too much money to buy anything.
That's it.
It's too conflicting. It's too conflicting issues that affect each other. Absolutely.
And that's where I'm wondering with the travel industry, right? Is that after you see such a shutdown, that bent up demand for I got to get to a beach. I've been to a beach every 2 years on my 2 or 3 weeks vacation that I get in the summer from my 9 to 5. Yeah. Now I can't, right? I can't go. I want to go. So go ahead.
No, I think I am noticing a pressure too, especially here in Canada, where they don't want you to travel.
Yes.
They really don't want you getting on a plane. It's not in our country's best interest. It's not in our country's best interest for you to take all that vacation pay and go to Mexico and spend it all on souvenirs. Yeah. They would much rather you go into Costco and fucking, and this is why there's I think they're like $2,000 this year they give you for traveling within Ontario. If anybody doesn't know that, there's a tax rebate that you can get for any travel that you do with him. But that's just a stretch to try and keep, the passport lineups, the airport lineups. Pearson's not the best airport on its best day. Let alone what's been going on. I think there's really like a federal movement to really deter people away from it, because when things like inflation happen, what people tend to think about is they tend to go, well, why am I paying $12 for a foot-long sub when I can go to Mexico and pay $1 for a taco? What really? And this is something that we're all suffering. It's getting harder for people to save for retirement when rent is going up, when gas is going up, and it's harder to travel when rent is going up and when gas is going up. And what I really feel like is happening here in Canada is they don't want you. They don't want you to travel.
Yeah.
They don't want you to realize that you can sell your $600,000 house and buy a $200,000 house somewhere else and have a lower cost of living and a better quality of life. These are things that
So I had a friend that I worked with, Veronica. She's from Guatemala, and she's coming here, and because she's come here, even though she doesn't have a very high paying job, but she has an all right job, like a middle class job. She's been able to buy a house and everything. And her plan is when she retires, so she'll have that retirement income and then the money from the house she sells. She says she can go back to Guatemala, buy a house, and she's a millionaire.
Yeah,
100%.
100%. And you know, this is one of those things you have to realize too, where like if you're in Guatemala and the cost of living is low, well, then it's really hard to earn that big money, you know. But if you manage to accumulate, you know, what the Canadian dream was before is paying off a mortgage. I'm not retiring yet. Buy a bigger house, pay off that. Now I'm retired. Buy a smaller house. You know, now people are realizing I can just sell this right now. And then I'll buy a surf school and then I'll live there and I'll take the rest, invest it, and on my dividend I could feed myself plus save, reinvest, and just have a better quality of life. My wife, she's from Brazil, and when she goes through the grocery stores here in Canada, she just like, it's beyond upsetting. Beyond upsetting. It's beyond, like, you know, she's a vegetarian and she's like in hysterics looking at the cost of a cob of corn or a tomato or a $4 onion. You know what I mean? Like they raised the price of rice by 2% in Brazil, and the people took to the streets. Like they weren't having it, and well, the rice went back down.
Right.
You know?
It's kind of
here things keep going up, and we go, fringe minorities, they don't know what they're talking about, until freaking more of them are starving to death.
I knew I liked this guy.
So you guys enjoy your conversation. I'm leaving now.
No, I love it. But Justin, you're exactly right, pal. Is that when you have these systems, and I talk about this all the time. James and I did a whole show on wheat prices and commodity pricing of food. So oil, food, and wheat were the big ones. And I did a talk about how at the time I said, you're going to see $10 boxes of cereal, no problem, in the next 3 or 4 months.
And 5 days.
Yeah. It was like 5 days. I walk into a grocery store, I walk into a local Sobeys, and I snap a picture of a $10 box, and it was like Fruit Loops. Like it was nothing. Like it wasn't even like the good stuff.
No.
Yeah. But see, we here in Canada, we've been complacent because we've lived so well for so long. Our great grandparents fought and died on beaches for a realistic ideology that they believed in.
Absolutely.
And then their kids lived a very different lifestyle from that, and were whether given things that their parents suffered for, ill-begotten maybe, I don't know. And then they've passed that on to our generation. And I'm telling you, man, if we don't start standing up a little bit and going, oh no, there's not going to be much to hand down to the next one.
Part of the problem is and like a lot of wealthy people talk about this, is that they went through hard times to create their wealth. So they had to like fight and stretch and bleed to get their wealth, and so that their kids wouldn't have to. And we talk about that platform that we have. So then their kids, they're driving Bentleys by just walking outside the door. Like they have because you don't want them to have pain. You don't want them to have stress. But then what do they do with their life? They become a TikTok creator, or they become an Instagram model, because
or YouTube.
Like, why would they go create a business? Why would they, get a job that's hard? Like, we have commercials right now on the radio for like jobs all day. If you're listening, because I listen to the radio while I drive, while I work, and all day, the majority of the commercials are businesses telling people how great their business is and what they're going to give you extra, so you'll work with them. That you won't have to work on the weekend, and you won't have long hours, and we'll give you like a $200 sign-in bonus. And I'm like, where's all this coming from? Why are people just working? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I think it's because of the end result. I mean, with $15 an hour and $2,000 rent, right? What do you have left? You don't have anything. You're you can't afford your car payment and the gas and the, people are going in debt slowly but surely every single month, and overdraft and credit cards help with that substantially, until you're sitting in a place 2 years from now and going, how the hell did that happen? How am I 12 grand in debt? And it's like, well, every single month, a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, and you're not making enough. And I think I don't know, it's depressing in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't know, a lot of reasons have like geared me towards like living in another country. Like, one thing to say, oh, they got dollar tacos in Mexico, right? And then somebody might say, oh, that healthcare though, right? And that's something that used to hold me back, is I'd be like, oh, well, I live in Canada. I live in the best healthcare place in the world. So not true. Not even true. Not even a little bit. Yeah. Not even the slightest. Not in the slightest. I broke my calcaneus in Amsterdam.
What is that?
That's your ankle bone. The big boy. Right? Yeah. This guy. Hold on.
Wow. How did you do that? We need the story of how you did that before we find out the story of how you fixed it.
Actually, it's embarrassing story.
Perfect.
I hooked up with a girl in my hostel in Amsterdam.
Is your wife around? You better look.
This is pre-marriage. It's okay. That's how you know you got a good one, by the way. Yeah. So no, I was all excited. I was a young kid, and I had hooked up with this girl in our room, and we were all wondering who it would be. And I was so excited that I was running down the stairs of the hostel, and I just didn't spill my beer, broke my foot, and deserved it 100%. I deserved it. I was being a douche, like. Yeah, you run down the stairs with ill intention, and you're gonna eat it.
That's it.
But I ended up in the hospital in Amsterdam, and I was like, "Hey, pretty sure my foot's broken." They're like, "Go to the broken bone department." I'm like, okay. Guy in a wheelchair brought me over, and they're like, "Oh, right this way. We'll cast you up." And I'm like, "But I've only been here less than 10 minutes, man." Like, And then there was a kid with a broken arm. He's like crying behind me, and I'm like, "Oh, well, let him go." And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to sit and wait for 35 minutes while there's another nurse ready to wrap my leg up. I was in and out of the hospital in 35 minutes with a cast on my leg. I couldn't actually believe it.
Wow. When you were there, what was there what kind of expense would be related to that type of care?
So with that, I had health insurance. Okay. So I had to pay the capital initial. Actually, it's a pretty big story, but so I paid it all cash. The insurance company said that they would pay me back. Of course, they wanted a printout of my boarding pass and wouldn't accept the digital one I used on my phone. Oh. Anyways, personal injury lawyer later, I made $700. So, but like the healthcare was a big one. It was it was holding me back from making these decisions. I got a stomach ulcer in Thailand. I'll never forget this. I walked in the hospital and like my stomach's hurting. Stomach ward, gastronomy ward, or whatever. I'm like, okay, go there. They didn't even have a waiting room. There was no waiting room. There was just a lady at the counter, and I was like, hey, my stomach's hurting. Doctor, room 3. Yeah. Okay. Went into the doctor's room. He's like, okay, downstairs, ultrasound. Up here, tube down your throat, back here. I'm like, okay, downstairs, upstairs, tube down my throat. Oh, went back in the doctor. I haven't sat in a waiting room once. Well, not one time. I didn't sit down and wait once. I went downstairs and it was, oh, Mr. Keel. I went upstairs and it was, cool. And then right after that, I get called in the doctor's office. He's got a flat screen TV behind him with my biopsy results because they took a biopsy of my stomach acid, and he had the results in the corner, and he had a video of my gut, and he was explaining everything. He's like, oh, here's the ulcer. It's like 3 millimeters. This was the biopsy. Here's your medication. Have a good day. Hour and 25 minutes. Hour and
All of
25
that.
minutes. And all of that was all procedures being done. It wasn't sitting down waiting and in a hospital.
Yeah.
I got dengue in Brazil. I went into the hospital. I was hooked up to an IV within 20 minutes. Not even. Again, I didn't.
What is dengue?
Dengue.
It's mosquito-borne. It's a mosquito-borne illness. It's kind of like malaria.
Yeah.
You get stung by a mosquito, and all your muscles in your body, all the muscles, the ones you never even heard about.
Yeah.
You know they're there now because they're just hurting. It took everything I had to walk to the hospital. But they put me on fluids right away. They didn't, had me. I was leaving this hospital in Brazil, and like, granted, it wasn't a nice one. It was a portable, but
right.
I got the help and the care that I needed within seconds. Like, and yeah, it's just something like, my wife is here from Brazil, and she can't believe prices in the grocery store, and she can't believe that there would be such thing as an 8-hour wait in a hospital. It's completely foreign to them.
Well, it's funny you say that, Justin. We've got a guest coming on here in 2 weeks, Shannon, and she's a pediatric RN out in British Columbia, just off the main island of Vancouver there. And this is someone who I've known for years, a very good friend of mine, and she watching everything through COVID, watching the policies that have come down the place, not even just COVID specific, but the deterioration of kind of what, the admirable job of looking after people's health and what it's kind of devolved to. I think she's going to be great. You have to check us out in a couple of weeks.
I'm excited to hear that. I've got a lot of my family work in healthcare.
Right.
My grandmother was a university professor at University of Toronto.
Wow.
That taught nursing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Family's super into it. And I don't know if you're reading these articles lately, and I think the National Post posted it about the exodus of nurses that we're actually leaving these high stress, underpaid jobs, and they're going to Texas. And they're getting more money. They're getting better work conditions.
Yeah.
And this is it's funny that article came out because I'm not going to name names, but I know a friend of mine who's my age and went through med school. And when he graduated med school, he came out of giving his thesis, and he walked into a room filled with a bunch of private hospitals from the States offering $300,000 signing bonuses.
Wow.
To these people. And these students are $150,000 in student debt.
Yeah.
Now you have the government of BC offering $25,000 to any pediatrician that wants to open up his own practice. $25,000. Yeah. $25,000.
Not gonna do nothing.
Really? You think any doctor is gonna go buy some overpriced $900,000 practice?
Yeah.
I mean, our doctors were already resorting into putting their offices into homes.
Yeah.
You probably have them all over the place. They're in people's residential homes. Yeah. That's not a result of that industry doing particularly well.
No. I have an uncle who, in the mid 90s, he was a physician in Collingwood, Ontario. And during kind of the brain drain, as they kind of nicknamed it back then, physicians, engineers, all of this, we saw a mass exodus. Anything that was government related. And this was going back to the NDP policies at the time that were under Bob Rae. And he was doing things called Ray Days. And my mother, she was an RN.
Yeah.
Do you remember Ray Days?
Oh, I do, because it was narrowly going to start affecting me, and I thought it was ridiculous. And just before the backlash stopped him.
Yeah, so Ray Days, for anyone that is kind of listening and doesn't know what Ray Days were, they were a Ontario government policy that you only worked 4 days a week instead of your 5 8-hour shifts. You would work 4 8-hour shifts, and the concept was they were going to do a massive government hire stimulus through cutting back the employment. And a lot of people ended up in government jobs and nursing and all of these things. But you had people that were already in those environments that had their wages cut by, 15%.
Yeah.
Right. So what these policies, when they did that, you saw these exoduses, you saw the doctors leave, you saw the nurses leave, you saw these people taking on travel type positions because they needed to pivot. They've got expenses, they got bills to pay, right? So, and again, this tends to be cyclical. All the stuff that we're talking about right now, we've done this before. And a lot of these
in more than one industry, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I can compare it to the airline industry, right? Airline industries used to be government run. And while they were government run, nobody could afford to fly.
Right.
Why? Because the people in charge of the airlines could charge the government whatever they wanted. There was no competition. It was one entity. So traveling was for the rich and the famous, and that was it. It wasn't until governments actually privatized airlines that airlines could compete and actually make prices affordable enough for people to actually fly.
So, Justin, are you saying that the government should get out of bullshit and running businesses? Because I like what you're talking about.
I put it this way. When it comes to healthcare, and I'll just go there because that's where I've been going.
Yeah.
Is I believe that all Canadians, everybody around the world, should have free healthcare. Nobody ever would question it, ever. If you want to look at the 3 countries in the world that are doing the best in healthcare, like the best, it's not Canada. And who is it? It's France, it's Singapore. And France used to be like on the bottom of the books. They nobody would ever consider them a health destination, but it wasn't until that they combined both their national plan with a private plan that they were actually able to boost their health industry. I mean, I think Canada's got we have 4 MRI machines per million people, or per 100,000. And I think in the States they have 56 per 100,000 or per capita. Right. And the reason they're able to do that is because these private industries promote competition. They give better wages to doctors and nurses. And not only that, there's competition. They want to buy the newest and best MRI machine. Well, what do they do with last year's model? They sell it to another company that's below them, or they sell it to the government. And all the people get to benefit from this, right? I
couldn't agree with you more. Again, my father died of cancer, and when we were looking at treatment options, my father died of a kind of quasi rare form of cancer called mesothelioma. It's from asbestos exposures. And so when we were looking at treatments, we were dealing with because it's a workplace injury, right? We're dealing with WSIB, and they were looking at certain tests that they wanted to do on him and stuff like that. And one of these was a light spectrometer test to prove that he had it in different areas of his body as well. And I'm like, all right, let's go do that. Like, where do you want to take him? Like, I'm thinking Toronto, Sunnybrook, Sinai, like these places. And they're like, well, we would be looking at Dallas. I'm like, my father is incredibly fragile. Like, he's not making that trip, right? So it ends up in a situation where we've almost created a cottage industry in Canadians jumping across into Buffalo, into New York, paying out of pocket to get those results instantaneously to begin treatments. Or you're going to wait and potentially die.
It's something you don't hear of too, because when somebody realizes they're sick like that, they're in no position to complain. They're in no position to stick up for themselves. And I have a friend of mine. She had brain cancer out in Victoria, and they've been sending her to California because they have tests that can specifically detect her type of cancer and give a more targeted treatment for it. Whereas the free stuff that we have here in Canada is more of a blanket treatment.
Right.
And then countries like France and like some of these other countries that not only have a national system, but have a private system as well, actually have higher statistics for surviving terminal illness. So in other words, if you've got cancer in Canada, you're in one of the world's worst places to be.
Yeah.
This is the world's worst place to be for cancer victims. And that's what happens when you leave it in the hands of the government, and you don't leave it into this competition, people want to complain about pharmaceutical industries controlling your lives. Well, we're letting it. We're allowing that to happen. You're letting them come into your life and charge you the money that they are and everything else. Because the proof is if you could buy those same drugs from 10 other people, they'd be a hell of a lot cheaper because of just the competition.
Right.
A lot more affordable and a lot more abundant, right? Like, yeah, I mean, that's
well, John, we're at that time that people's eyes are glazing over. So I just thought I'd say, I'm just gonna, drop this and then you guys can argue me. But I think Canada is like one of the, like, I'm not a world traveler though. So it's hard for me to, like, that's why I've been quiet, because you're a world traveler. You've been all around, you experienced all these places. So it's hard for me to argue that Canada has the greatest healthcare in the world when I have no idea. I've never been to another country. I don't know how it works. I like the fact that I don't pay for it. I have yet to have a negative experience in healthcare. I admire the nurses that work there, admire the doctors.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that I can go in, come out, and I don't have a big bill.
Right.
Now it does. I know I'm not an idiot. I know it comes off my check every month. In fact, I pay taxes, which I got to figure out why.
And I would rather keep doing that.
Sorry?
I would rather keep doing that. I would rather keep the deductions and keep the national health care. Absolutely. 100%. I mean, those are things that have been great. My daughter, for example, takes medication for example, and a lot of medications aren't covered. Right. Especially if you don't have a job with a drug plan, the medications aren't covered. Insulin isn't covered unless you have a job, and glasses and dentistry and there's a lot that's really left uncovered. And it's not to say I'm not grateful.
No, for sure.
Country such as Canada.
What it seems like to me, Justin, is, to be honest with you, from knowing a little bit about your story and talking about my story and my, kind of my process with my father over the last little while here, it's that you've seen it at its worst. Yeah. You've seen it fall through the cracks. You've seen where a loved one is standing there in pain and suffering and they don't have answers. And those things are incredibly painful and weighing on a human. Yeah. And I think that's where myself, a lot of my my hesitancy to be satisfied with our healthcare in this country comes from what I watched with my father, and especially going through the COVID absolute insanity. Like, I kind of a very brief story. My father was in a number of hospitals across the province over the last 13 months of his life. And I was almost arrested a number of times because security is like, no, you can't come in here. And I go, no. I had an uncle who passed away 6 months before my father eventually did, and they weren't going to allow his family to go in and see him. And this is in our regional hospital where we live here. And myself and my cousin went in, and we decided that's the hill we're going to die on. If we're going to get arrested, we're going to do this today.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. 100%. Good for you.
And it was a situation where I know a number of law enforcement officers in the area. They kind of walked in, they're like, it's you, right? And these are buddies of mine. I've police experience in my past life, and walking in, I just said, I'm willing to follow whatever you're asking me to follow. Telling me that my uncle is going to pass away without seeing his family is unacceptable. And they're like, that's our policy. And I go, that's not the policy, and that's not the policy today. So you let me know how you want to handle this. And we did. And security came and they called the police, and we just stood there and we kept talking, and it got to be where we got to see my uncle pass away.
But you weren't ignorant. You weren't like rude. You weren't like yelling and screaming and throwing signs. You just kept on over reiterating. I understand what you're saying,
right?
But that's not what's happening.
Correct.
There's ways we can make this work. You're not like screaming and yelling in someone's face and putting the camera up and filming everything. And that's why people do things now. And that drives me crazy. If you just go in, you're civil, and you just say, I understand what you're saying. I get you want me to leave, but I can't.
I'm not going.
My uncle's dying up there, and I know you have a heart. So let's work it together. Let's do this. And as long as you have that calm kind of demeanor, they can't do anything. They can't throw you out of a public building. They can't arrest you for being kind.
Yeah.
There's nothing. They got nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That goes to, I think, where a lot of us And as our generation, as we see our parents get older and sicker and going through the health issues that we're seeing the snapshot right now of where this hasn't been great and what this looks like moving forward. So, but is there anything else, Justin? Is there any kind of thing, if you were giving advice to anybody, what would be kind of what would be your advice to somebody that's wanting to jump out and do something like that?
Like a very old man wants to go.
You know, I really feel like there's a lot more to it, right? I mean, traveling for me has changed a lot. It's not so much about beaches and postcards and the color of the sand and this type of thing. It's more so, what am I going to do when I'm there? You know, with my travels to Thailand, one of the more memorable things that I did was go scuba diving. Yeah. And when I look back, that's what I remember. Yeah. Do I remember the full moon party? No.
Kinda.
Like, no.
You remember arriving.
Yeah.
Leaving.
And here I am 6 years later, and I'm like, I was there a long time. And all I really remember was the 1 week I spent scuba diving.
That's cool.
Wow.
Why is that? And it's because you're with like-minded people. You're doing things together, like-minded things together. You know, the people you go out and you surf together with, or that you dive with, are the people that you go out and have a couple beers with. You know, and you know, like when you're getting to know somebody through drinks, that's a lot of drinks,
right?
If you already know the person and you're going to have a drink, well, you're going to go have a drink or two. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Like, you don't have to stretch the night out till 4 a.m. to, you know, and I think it's really important for people to find the meaningful things that they really want to do. You know, you want to go see the pyramids, you want to wake up and go see them, like, to go do it. If you want to go surfing or scuba diving or deep sea fishing, or, you know, there's so many things. And I don't know. I feel happy because I've felt that I feel like I found a form of adrenaline also that compromises into exercise and having fun. And I think having fun and exercise are two of the most important things to, like, keeping a good attitude about yourself and really to be in a good mood. You know, working out helps us to stay in a good mood.
Absolutely.
And having fun helps us to having that balance, right? And if you can get as many things done in one stone, the better.
That's right.
You know, I talk about that too. Like, if you're going to work and you're coming home and then you sit and watch Netflix all night, or you're playing on the computer all night, and that is your life, that's why you're depressed. That's why you feel about yourself. That's why you don't love yourself. That's why you're getting to be 100 pounds. Is because you've chosen to not have a life. Mm-hmm. If you have 6 hours to watch Netflix, you have 6 hours to do anything. And the potential is unlimited if you just stop and, like, think of something else to do besides, like, don't, like Pat says, get rid of Netflix. Then you'll never see it. Get rid of all the bad food. Like, you don't need chips in your house and a case of pop.
100%.
Not at all. You don't need that kind of food in your house. Get rid of it. And then you will go out and you'll go do stuff. And you'll, like, experience the world.
Sorry, it's like all you're saying things, and it's triggering my head, and I'm like, you want to say all these things, but you're right. And you're saying, like, from what even you put in your body, you know, one of the things my wife notices is, like, how much cheaper processed things are at the store rather than buying raw vegetables, raw fruit, and the foods that actually make you really feel good. You know, like, it's one of those things.
I talk about sugar being, like, terrible for you. It not only does it ruin your mental capabilities, it also gives you, like, this high and low, like, real quick. There's studies that prove this stuff, that it like
100%, 100%,
over and over again. And yet every food we have has sugar in it. Like, if you go and look, it wasn't until I started doing keto, because you have to really look at the back of stuff and know the carbs and the sugars and everything. That I realized, like you'll look at a bag of something and it'll be like 2 tablespoons, 30 grams of sugar. 2 tablespoons. I'm having like 6 tablespoons.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. And it's I'm telling you, the sugar is like the pop. And anyway, sorry.
No.
Well, Justin, dude, I want to tell you right now, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. You have had a very interesting experience in kind of your journey to where you are right now. I think it's fantastic. I very much appreciate you coming on here and sharing some of your experiences with us tonight. And I want to have you back here when you come back from Brazil. I want to hear all about it, and we'll sit down, maybe crunch some numbers, and go over some of your deal even, and we'll see what we can work out. I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah. That sounds great. Patrick, James, I can't thank you guys enough for throwing me in the deep end here and doing a podcast. I've never done one, and it's great. It's great. It's just a conversation between
we're taking podcast virginities left, right, and center, pal.
Yeah, what a lot of fun. What a great time. Yeah.
Well, folks, as always, thank you for joining us. We will see you probably tomorrow. We'll have something up probably tomorrow. So,
that's what we do.
As always, folks, thanks for joining us, and let's make some money together, guys.
Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
And you got a tagline? Something?
Tagline?
Go out and live it.
I love it.
Yes.